Greetings, Wardens, and welcome once again to another development update. I am Kamikaze, lead developer behind Warden. In this update, we wanted to give you a little bit of an update on the flight modes of what you can expect coming up to the alpha. We included some new flight mechanics with various additions for flight modes and orientation mechanics. So to get into it real quick here, as you can see here, I'm playing around just with the throttle, which is just the throttle-based vector mode, as you know and love. And we can also switch between throttle-based and the drift mode, or Newtonian. As you can see here with me pressing the Z key, I'm setting myself up to drift now, and I'm constantly traveling in that last direction that I set up. And obviously, you know, you can augment your speed and direction a bit by including the thrust and the thrusters to push you in certain directions. But the next one that we set up is actually called the direct vector mode, which you can actually access by hitting Control Z. This actually toggles you between throttle and direct vector. As you can see here, all of the different icons that are just below your throttle base there show you the T for throttle, D for direct, and N for Newtonian. And you can toggle between these with all that, or, and we'll get to these ones on the left later, but you can see on the right, on this radial menu, we can actually switch between all those different modes holding the V key, so Victor. So with that said, let's actually go and follow this meteor just so I can show you something new and cool addition to one of the flight modes, the direct vector. So we'll swap over to that guy. And direct vector, this one actually, as you can see here, I'm not doing any sort of input, but this brings you to a complete stop relative to, you know, what you've currently set yourself to. So right now, since I haven't actually set myself up to follow anything, so right now it's actually doing it via world space, or, you know, around the planet. So it brings you to a complete stop unless you do some direct input. So right now I'm holding W to go forward, and it's very similar to games like, you know, Descent, or think of it like a first-person shooter style. So you get that same sort of setup. But in addition to this, actually, if I actually hit Control and F to follow my particular target. Now, right now, I'm actually not pressing any sort of inputs. This actually matches your velocity as best as your ship can do. If your ship can match the current velocity of said object, then it will actually. So it will follow that exact vector, no matter which way you're actually aiming too. So I could be actually looking, you know, completely around, and I'm actually still traveling in that same direction. But on top of this, now I can actually augment my orbit around said object as well, using the same the direct vector keys. So W to go forward relative to wherever I'm viewing, and while maintaining that same velocity of the object that you currently have targeted. Now this is actually really, really handy, especially in combat, so you can actually set yourself up to match the velocity of even enemies as well. So let's get one of the silicoid out here, and we'll actually set ourselves up to match his velocity. So let's get into a certain spot, and whoop, he's really close. Now, here, let's toggle my vector. So you can see here, it makes it really, really easy now for me to track him and follow him. This makes it really a lot easier to mow him down. Come at me, bud. Yeah, die. And as soon as I lose my target, then it'll lose the follow mechanic as well, and then I'll have to reinitialize that on whatever kind of target I want. So besides this meteor, we also have set up this to work with the mega meteors. But before we actually get into that mega meteor, I wanted to show you some of the other orientation modes as well. So if I hold my V key, you can see my radial menu. We have the floating crosshair that everybody should be familiar with by now, which is really good for mouse inputs. But one of the common questions were for the fixed weapons, and how we were going to be able to have, as you can see, my fixed weapons for my well, my missiles technically, on the front of the ship, they don't really kind of match up where I'm trying to aim. So, like, you know, for instance, larger vessels like the Hyperion or even the Aegis of Terra fighter, the Offspray, has all fixed weapons. So how could I actually set up my craft to be set better with that? And that's where the fixed crosshair comes into play. And as you can see here, what I'm doing with my mouse is actually directly inputting the turn onto my vessel, and my crosshair is just locked to the front of my vessel instead of being the floating crosshair for all the gimbaled weapons. So if you had like everything that was all fixed, then the floating crosshair wouldn't actually be all that helpful. And this plays actually really well. As I jump onto the gamepad here, this plays really, really well for any gamepad or joystick that has, you know, a constant direction of where it's actually going to be aiming. So this is a very good setup for those types of behaviors. And the last one, of course, the turret view, we've already, you know, kind of shown this off in the demo. So this is actually pretty much the same. One addition that we're actually going to be looking at including, here I'll go into throttle so I can show you, we'll be setting the speed indicator so that it will be screen space, but we'll do that at a later date. So let's go back to floating crosshair for now. So with the mega meteors, we'll tease this for a minute, but one thing that we're setting up as well is the direct vector that you saw previously. This will be a key feature for you actually going into the mega meteors and taking it out from the inside. So let's get close enough to the tunnel here, and let's turn on our lights so we can actually see where we're going. So you can see instantly my ship automatically switched over from the throttle vector mode over into direct vector, and now it also has captured the velocity of the mega meteor too, which makes it much easier for me to actually orient myself and go inside of this tunnel here. As you can see, there's silicoid eggs in here, but we'll leave it at this for now until we get further closer to the alpha, and you guys will be able to experience this all for yourself. I don't want to spoil much more, but thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.